my expectation of watching somebody on stage is that they're going to do something to entertain me. So I feel like at the very least, I should be as locked in as I possibly can. And that will benefit anyone watching. Like the more locked I am, the better it's going to be for them. And that is a weird thing to get over too, like kind of stage fright of like letting go to get in the moment of stuff like that. That's a weird thing that took me a long time to do as well. But you just got to accept that sometimes you might embarrass yourself.
They're off in the Kentucky Derby.
Interest of the greater good for me to smoke a joint and calm down.
I am the greatest. He'll fall an eight to prove that I'm great. And if he keeps talking jive, I'm going to cut it to 5.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Ville Chillin podcast. Today, we're bringing back a guest we talked to over a year ago now, I think. And honestly, I got to ask, because I didn't do it the first time, is it Christ McConnell?
Christ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Christ McConnell.
Like the bass player from Nirvana. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I just wasn't sure, it's with your art and everything. The first time I said it, I kind of thought that was probably it. But I just didn't know, man. So I wanted to go ahead and ask that just for the spelling sake.
I had a lady at a show come up to me and she was convinced it was a sort of Marilyn Manson like type thing. She's like, "'Cause you're like Christ and like Mitch McConnell." Awesome. And like, I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Whatever people want to say. So
yeah, dude.
Yeah. I know last time we talked, I said Chris, but then I wasn't really sure. And I guess I didn't really ask last time. So I wanted to make sure.
Call me whatever you want to call me, my friend. I got many names. I'm not afraid to have a couple,
Yay. Whatever works.
Thanks, I'll tell you that much.
Right. So yeah, man, it's been a long time. Like we said, about a year since we're coming up just on a year since you released the last song we talked about, though, right? The Ars Diaboli. And like we were just saying before we hit record, 13 instruments for Friday the 13th show. Really cool concept. And we didn't make that Friday the 13th show, but we did make the camp show, and just wanted to say again, it was awesome, man. Seeing you do what you do live is, you see it in a video, but there's no faking the live.
Yeah. It's a high wire act, as Penn and Teller would say, like, that's always what I think about, is like how magicians, like, there's a small room for error. But dude, that's why I like it. It keeps me present, I can't think of anything that forces me more. Do you want to humiliate yourself, Chris? Or do you want to you got to be in the moment? You got to try and lock this in, baby. Yes. I'm so glad you guys came out, and shout outs to you guys for coming out and supporting it anyway, man. Anyone coming out and supporting live local music, you guys, I think, tipped the venue and everything, man. You guys rule. I was hyped to see you guys. I wasn't expecting to see you all.
It was awesome. Great. And it was again about a year ago. It was during Louder Than Life too. So today is the last day of Louder Than Life. So full circle, but we definitely glad that we got to do something local versus awesome.
Me too, man. They're going through it right now too, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a little hurricane down there.
Yeah. It was a couple years ago when it got stormed out like that down by the waterfront. I had a ticket, and I don't remember what year that was. I was just talking about that with someone. It's crazy that keeps happening.
And then it was by the waterfront, and I guess that's the year they decided to relocate. So it's still.
And now they're pretty far away, and they're still in the same problem. What a bummer.
Time of year or something.
It still worked out though, because I heard all the local venues were filled up, like Mag Bar and all the other ones. They were packed because all the people who didn't get to make it out. So it worked out.
One of my heroes is the singer of Rammstein, Till Lindemann, and he was supposed to play, I think, Friday, and it got rained out, and he stuck around and played yesterday here, apparently right before Motley Crue. Dude was out at Wrong Side Bar, hanging out and doing shots with everyone. I cannot believe I missed that, man. Cool. That's crazy. a bunch of Tom Morello was running around the Whirling Tiger, I believe. At least, you know, if you're tracking all that on the old Facebook.
Right. I'm weird. Actually, we used to listen to Rammstein all the time, dude.
Right, well, would you say that he would be they were like an influence on you at all, or in some of your
huge
music?
Influence, huge. That man in particular, their front man. I would say now, if you follow his solo career, dude, oh man, the range of styles of music that he'll do, I just respect it so much. You can tell it sort of starts there. He'll either write some sort of poetry, and it's also in that deep, you know, German guttural, you know, like voice still. But dude, he sings in Spanish, English, but the range of songs and the stylized videos that he puts out with them, dude, like Chef's Kiss. I can't think of anyone who does it and expresses himself as eloquently as that dude and that band. I mean, they've been a gold standard in my brain for a long time. Crazy. And have you ever seen their live show? Without giving up too much, because I saw them this past year or two, they came back, and the time before was 10 years prior. And I saw them with my cousin. Dude, they played this indoor venue. You know, they're like the fire band, like they're shooting. I knew they were going to be fire, like UFY. Like I knew it was going to be hot.
Exactly.
The show starts off like, without giving too much of their show away, it was like a brick wall. And then they just start hammering through the wall, and then there's beams of light and fire shoots out, and then they just start playing a song through some wall that they busted through. They're crazy. They're unbelievable. I love that. I know not everyone enjoys theatrics thrown in, I guess, with a live show, but I loved it.
I think that's amazing. Adds such a different element to it, you know. It's all about captivating the audience, right? You got to do something to captivate the audience, and the more theatrical you make it, captivating it really. It creates separate memories from the music everybody already knows and been listening to. You add a certain story to it. You add an element to it.
Yeah, and then suddenly it can mean something entirely different. Yeah, totally. I totally agree. It's like I understand why people, you know, wouldn't appreciate it. You know, they maybe, you know, musicians or someone who are really into the technicality of playing. But to me, like you just said, it's just another level of going, well, we got this opportunity to, you know, we're going to be on stage and we have this amount of time here. We could tell a story visually as well as playing it with this song. And that's what's I agree. I think that's what's so cool about them. It's like their live show is almost like a story playing through, and it, you know, you could take what you want from each of their songs. You know what I mean? Some of them are pretty on the nose, but like they're clearly telling a story tied to the song, and then some of them are just like these wild theatrics. You know, it's awesome. Have you ever seen like a Mon Amarth? Have you ever heard of that band, the Viking band?
No, I haven't.
Dude, I just caught them over summer as well. They have like Vikings come out and fight in the middle of the show. It's
that's crazy.
It's awesome, dude. It's great. A big old Viking boat is in the background.
Like what comes to mind is like, you know, like Guar or something back in the day. Like that's just, you know, and or Alice Cooper. We was talking about Alice Cooper the other day. Like, so yes, I love even, you know, Anson
Schools out.
Yeah. Yeah. He's kind of the OG of big theatrics. Them and Kiss, right?
Yep.
Dude, Guar as well. Speaking of them, do you all remember that show that they did at Sounds? It was called Sounds of the Underground. They did it Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
Yes.
Were you there, man?
No, I wanted to be though. Like, I don't know if that was the same year Lamb of God was there. We was listening to the show we did the other day with you, and I think you were saying that somebody local was played at Waverly, and I didn't know if that was still Sound of the Underground or what.
Oh my God! I said someone played out at Waverly
locally.
Yeah, it was a local band. It was somebody. I don't know if you said you was affiliated with them at one point, or like just somebody you were kind of talking about the time period of like the new metal. But you know, it was a year ago. You know,
yeah,
I mean,
but you're saying Guar played there.
The Guar played that regardless. Yeah, that was my first time seeing Guar, and I just got one of I don't know, graphic y'all let me get, but like one of their puppets guitarist is just like, he has like a big like dick that's just kind of dangling. It's like a huge massive appendage, and it shoots out a liquid every so often. I was in the front row. I was just getting directly hosed by this space penis.
Oh god.
But that was
that's an experience only so many people get to experience in life.
Oh, dude, that was also the Kentucky Bible incident too. Have you heard of that?
No,
dude. There was. I'm sorry, I got all kinds of show stories, man, today. But that same show, Behemoth played here, and they got banned from playing in Kentucky for a little bit because the lore of this story is that this was the last show of that Sons of the Underground tour playing at Waverly. And I don't know if you know who Behemoth are, but they're a pretty, like, I'd say, kind of anti-religious. They're a black metal Polish band. I don't want to say they're anti-religious, but
gotcha.
They're a black metal Polish band. Poland and the Catholics, they got a whole history, right?
Poland goes hard.
Church burns. Just a couple.
Right. There's a few. Well, another band on that show was kind of Christian. I think it's like I think the rumor is, this is all lore, is that it was a Devil Wears Prada kid. One of those that band. There was a band called Devil Wears Prada as well, which I like a couple of their songs. And they came up to the Behemoth right before they were about to go on stage. So they're in their like war crazy gear. They like paint up and everything. And he was like, "Hey man, I don't think I'll get to see you again. We're about to leave, but like I wanted to give you this book." And he hands the singer of Behemoth a Bible. And this was right around the time I was, my little high school self was like arriving at this show, like, "Oh my God, Behemoth is here." And he walks out on stage with the Bible, and you can see him looking off to the side of the stage, like he's looking at someone. And he's like, "Someone hand me this book." And he just starts ripping it up. He's like, "Fuck this book. How dare you present this bullshit?" And then he plays a song called Christians to the Lions. It was a very appropriate intro, I guess. Kind of icing on the cake. And it shook dude, it put out a vibe. Like it was awesome, in my opinion. It was awesome. And then they do their Spit and Blood. It's a whole thing. That after that, they got banned from playing in Kentucky for a while, apparently.
And it's so ironic because, like, if anybody knows the area, Waverly's like right at the bottom of the hill, right there on Dixie, there's a giant sign that says Jesus is Lord. Yeah. And it's kind of ran down, like, to be honest, like, it's not like, it looks like something you'd see in the middle, the sticks or whatever. Yeah. And it's just for that to happen right above there and there. It's just,
it's the Bible Bell, man. It's the Bible Bell, baby. I'm just getting that. That was a crazy show. That was what a time, man. What a time of wild ass shows.
Dude, it being by ghost too, like with the appendage shooting out. Like if y'all are familiar with the episode of South Park, I'm just picturing Randy Marsh in this one episode where they didn't have internet, and he's like, "It's a spooky ghost." No, it's a spooky ghost. Like
yeah, and all there's all the ghost splurs or whatever.
Well, and it's got splat everywhere, man. Okay, go on.
I love South Park, dude. Yeah. No, man, great shows. Louder Than Life rules. We're supposed to play tonight. Now that we're talking about this, is it Korn?
Are they finishing it out?
I have no idea.
Korn, bro. I've seen Korn probably more than any band I can think. Love Korn,
especially once they started like doing like more of that that mix of like electronic and stuff. Like they did some stuff with what was it? Skrillex. Yeah, once they did like a little blend with Skrillex and stuff. That was really cool. I didn't listen to their stuff in like the late 90s and stuff, and then compared to, like, I didn't know how that would mesh, but did awesome. And
dude, I was such a huge Korn fan. Like when that was another big band for me, man. I could go on for a few reasons why, but I still to this day think and appreciate the rawness of the emotion from their first album. And I give a lot of it to, I think his name's Ross Robinson, I believe, is the producer of that album. He did the first Slipknot album too, but man, he got something out of those dudes that is like, it's terrifying, and it's the emotion is real. That's why I still to this day respect it. And I like music like that. To me, like, it still strikes me. If you listen to some like the song "Daddy" from Korn,
so hard to hear.
Scissors from Slipknot, when you get to the like end breakdowns or whatever, dude, it hurts to listen to. It's like, it's brutal, but that's great art, man. And
then for him perform it live, like I've only seen, I think, one or two videos he perform it live, and it's just rough. Like,
it makes me sad thinking about it. But that band, dude, I love Korn. Oh my God, I love Korn, dude. the guitarist Monkey, still to this day, I still want a 7-string or an 8-string guitar. I'm a left-handed person, so it's always been hard for me to get instruments. So I don't know. Corn's huge for me, dude. Yeah. I think they were one of the first shows I ever saw, and I painted my own shirt and made like the word, you know how like they had their old logo and it was just like a white shirt with the black like Corn across the shirt. I made my own, dude. I was a super nerd about Corn now that I'm thinking about it.
Nice. Would you say that would you consider them one of the influences too, like in your art and your music and
Absolutely.
stuff? Like,
absolutely. That whole time period, I can't. So growing up, I had a buddy who we kind of had this fun trade-off of like really exposing each other to, I guess you'd say, like music that you choose to listen to as opposed to just like music you hear on the radio. And a big band for me was probably System of a Down. Like I got really into System of a Down.
Still this album, dude.
Still love that. That's still probably like my band. And I love that band. That whole era, like I said, that kind of new metalish era is deep in my heart. Linkin Park, these bands. But my buddy that I met around that time and that age, like skateboarding and whatnot, I introduced him to System of a Down and he introduced me to Korn. And I would say that really started to get us to be like, I don't know, I started to hunt for music. You know, I started to seek out music.
Tankian is a badass too, man.
well, a lot of those bands I was kind of discovered them actually through like the online. Well, of course, you know, the sharing music, you know, Kazaa, Napster, and everything else. But right before that, there was a Columbia House. Like they did this thing where they said it was like 99 cents a CD, and like I was like, "Hey, mom!" Like I was like, "It's only like $12." I don't know, like she probably ended up paying like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, right. But
it was a scam,
like
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
It was. I think I watched something about that. Yeah.
But like that's how I felt. Like they had Hybrid Theory and you know all those like when they first kind of came out. So like I felt definitely.
I remember that. I always wanted that too. I guess I'm lucky I didn't fall for it. I was definitely susceptible to that. There's a comedian, I think his name is Joey Diaz. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, dude. Yes. Joey Diaz, associated with Joe Rogan.
Yeah. The story talking about how he would just steal those CDs, like get them sent to him and maybe sell them or something. I don't want to fuck up his story, but like I know that he's got a funny deal with those things too, man.
Joey Diaz is hilarious too.
very, very funny dude. Hilarious dude, man. Yeah, but that whole era, dude, I love all those bands. I love the rawness. I like that the focus was on the structure of the songs and the clarity of the story they were telling. I'm still somebody that appreciates technicality in playing, but I know that era kind of gets shamed for killing the guitar solo. You know, like that was no longer cool after like the 80s, I would say probably made it like the coolest, and then grunge kind of, it was still there, but new metal kind of crushed it when it became a big thing. But that being said, like the focus became about like the structure of songs. And there's still so many of those songs from that era that you could throw on right now and are still like, I mean, awesome, awesome. And the younger generation seem to gravitate to this stuff too, man. I think that's pretty cool. My faith has been restored in some of the youth because they have access to everything. You know, like we didn't have access to everything. You really had to seek out music that you wanted growing up. Like you heard about it from someone or something. Had to get it burned on a CD, like what we were talking about, trading CDs, all that stuff. It was very we got lucky and we started to get Napster and Kazaa and all that stuff where it was peer-to-peer sharing, and you could kind of find what you wanted to find without having to pay for it. Now, dude, just having access to anything you want at the tip of your fingers, it's really cool. This younger generation is like, I wanted to say that they were all retro, but I mean, it's not. It's just like all things that we already consider great in culture, and they get to pick up and like have. And I think that's pretty cool, man. Very cool. Makes their taste really already broad, right off the bat.
And I think that's really cool. For one, I think it's cool for two reasons. Because last time we talked about the brevity of the internet and having access to the internet in a totally different way. It was more about learning and everything, but now it's about the access to entertainment and the access to sound. And I think that's really awesome. But yeah, dude, today with like the access of YouTube and everything, before our generation, there was really nothing. Everything you heard was on the radio or you bought it from a store, right. Whereas with our age, you had to start the peer-to-peer. But then with the age of YouTube, has just changed the world as for the younger generation. Like there's there's things, I have a 5-year-old daughter, and there's things that she talks about that are like as old as I am. And I'm like, how the hell did you hear about that? But then there's new things too, and it's so different, and it does add such an appreciation value. You see more and more young people wearing clothes and just like sharing songs or sampling songs, if you want to talk about younger artists that are, from that older generation. And it's really cool to see that crossover. Yes. The age of the internet is amazing.
Mm-hmm. And it's just like endless, like where it can go. Right. That's what, I think we were talking a little bit about that last time. Like what happens when you can cue an orchestra with one finger as far as like making music, where does that send all this? And the exact same could be said with when you have infinite access to information. It's like you're just able to explore anything you really want to explore to its like fullest extent. You can just go all in.
From a Wikipedia rabbit hole to a YouTube rabbit hole to any other forum you can think of.
We could talk fun, like worrisome stuff though, is like what it does to attention. That's what I think is worrying. It's destroying my attention too, man. I remember even worrying about that back in like studying psychology. We would talk about what's it called, like retention versus retaining, I think, or like sort of like retention versus recall. You can, you could learn something I could study tonight and be able to recall it in the morning, but will I know it in a week? If I can know it in a week, that's retaining it. Our retention is
it's bad.
That long-term versus short-term memory. You were talking about like even the structure of a song though. Like I was listening to Tool the other day. Yeah. And it was, I forget what song, 8-10 minute song. And about halfway through, I'm like, dude, this song's still playing and it's awesome. Like, it's just like it just started. Yeah. And you don't have that anymore with the way that songs are structured with.
It's like 3-minute songs.
Yes. Well, 3-minute songs with about 2 or 3 repeats to where really it's maybe a minute song, like twice, if you really think the way it is, because they're made for kind of like TikTok, like is what's happening. I feel like a lot of that has to do with the platform in which that they're being presented, because you got to think like music. Whenever a music video first came out, that's when I feel like they kind of shortened from that 10-minute, like solos and stuff, more towards the 5-minute, because we have to have a commercial before, we have to have a commercial after. But now with everything being, more so online, well, we need a commercial every 30 seconds or, minute. So it feels like that's why it's structured that way, and the art's kind of following by in some cases. Like, what would you think about that kind of?
I totally agree with you, man. I totally agree with you. We could go deep in on that, dude. I feel like if you go back into like music history, most songs were about 3 minutes that were like your top 40 songs or whatever. And I'm pretty sure there was a Beach Boys song that was like 6 minutes. And it was like one of the first songs that was longer in like a top 40 setting, and they let it in. And that kind of opened the door to these prog bands starting to like go like, let's do 10-minute songs, fuck it, I'm thinking and stay in the movement.
I'm thinking Iron Butterfly and Agata Davida. It's a whole side of an album. It's like 15 minutes long, you know what I mean? Of nothing but different instrument solos. So it's crazy because, that was right in the 60s, 70s era.
Yeah. But it was like cool to explore those spaces to like the utmost that you could, and because there was maybe it had to do like we're talking about, like a limit of access to these things. So you kind of let these guys. It seemed like the labels and everybody were way cooler with people pushing the limit, and then just like let the artists do the thing and let's see what they find out there. Because now, ever since I've said that, like it's exactly like you said, it's just gotten tighter and tighter. The songs have all gotten shorter, and you get into reels and stuff. And it's like I worked in advertising for a second, and a good little note from that was that you have, I think it's like 1/100th of a second to catch someone's attention, like with an image or like a sound or something. It's like a crazy short period of time, how quickly people will just skip to, the next thing. That even me, like looking at like the state of how people take in music, when I was first starting to put things online, I would make things that were like way shorter, like little 30-second like loops or something, just because there was stuff I was working on. Anyway, I just get bored and come home and make it anyway, and I would just share it. And that was from there. I just slowly stopped caring about like the rules of an algorithm and like start to explore more like, what do I want what do I have to say? Where can I take this sound? Where would I like to check this out? Oh, I think that's interesting. Let's see what maybe will respond to this or whatever. It's good to have, I think, that whole arc as an artist too, kind of get that out of your system. The obvious influence of like, okay, I want to sound like Marilyn Manson or somebody at the moment. Oh, I want to make sure that these people hear my sound. So I'm going to write something that's only 10 seconds long. That's going to get their attention. Get all that shit out of it's good to get that shit out of your system. If it works for you, great. But at the end of the day, every artist is just going to say what they want to say and like say what comes through them. I feel like art at its like most pure, you feel like you didn't even write it. You feel like it's just something that fell out of you. And if you're all focused on trying to, go viral or like, catch a wave of some kind, that's all good and well, but like good to know where you're going to land and to be ready for that. And have something to say.
Yeah, definitely. That's some really good advice to honestly anybody trying to do anything in this digital world.
Yeah.
It's even multi-billion-dollar corporations have to find a way to kind of set them aside from the noise to where they get noticed and they get recognized, and there's a different purpose behind what they're doing versus what competitors are doing, because otherwise everyone's doing the same thing and creating monopolies. So it really exactly they are, but that's what makes little businesses matter is people actually stepping up to support that little difference, and it's the same thing that makes you stand out from the crowd.
Right. When everybody else is doing like those 1 minute, 2 minute songs, and you're doing multi instrumentals, solo, like that's definitely
yes.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you, dude. Thank you. Like I said, this is all dude, all right, not to get super dorky, but I just like feel like where is music going? Like I just think like, where is all this going? And I hate to say this too, but think about this. When you look at the top 40s now, how often do you see a band in the top 10? Like very, there's a couple that keep popping up. Country's popular right now. There's certain types of people that appreciate live music, but overwhelmingly it's an individual artist. And I don't know how I feel about that. Because I love bands. I grew up playing in bands and jamming and whatnot. Since that's what it is, how far can you push that? Like I said, from the ground up, I was like, I want people to still appreciate playing instruments. I think it's important and I think it's cool. I think it's cool to be able to play a bunch of different instruments. But then you still got to have something to say. And what kind of stuff do I think is cool to say? I don't see a lot of like rock star energy or like I guess alternative type vibes in like a single artist, like an individual artist. I don't see that anymore. You see a lot of poppy, very like created for algorithm type artists in playing songs that you can tell were written in a room by 20 people. And I'm not bashing that. Once again, I'm just saying this is America, baby. This is freedom and individuality. How far can an individual go, especially as an artist? So I try to take that sonically and jump back and play and mess with all sorts of instruments and find stories that they tell me or whatever. And then I try to tell them however they come as best I can with whatever abilities I got anymore. Because it seems like another rule these days is that you got to be able to do everything. You got to be able to, from the front of the camera to the behind the scenes camera to the business side of everything. That's the starting ground now. So, yeah.
Well, but I do think one thing that's different about what you're doing.
Sorry for
ranting.
It was
awesome. No, it was awesome.
The difference between what you're doing is everybody else is hiring people out. If you hear multiple instruments in a song, you're hearing them hiring people out to come in and play those instruments. Or if you're hearing, either that or they're pressing a button. And being able to do everything yourself nowadays is different than what you do because you're actually playing all those instruments yourself. Whereas you can do, the marketing and stuff by yourself and things like that. But you're actually playing. When you said you played 13 instruments, you played 13 instruments. And I think that's important for this story because, we saw it. It's not like you're just saying it. We saw it at camp. We saw you play 13 different instruments on one live loop. And that's
Yeah.
so
And it was
different
a
than anything
like,
else.
The performance too, like it was
And
the
there was
lead up
flair to it. Yeah,
yes,
there
it
was flair to it.
like, even though like it was just you with some instruments and like a backdrop, like you made it like as theatrical as you could be, like in the best way possible.
Sure.
Like
Thank you.
it was
Thank you, dude.
intense.
Thank
Like loved it.
I
And
always
it just
joke that it's obvious that I'm compensating for something, right?
no, it goes back to those influences we were talking about, though. You know, making a theatrical nature out of a live show, especially.
Yeah.
That's just one more thing you're doing by yourself, which
Yeah.
you're putting on a whole show by yourself. So you definitely recognize that, because that is. Most people have teams doing that. Like you're talking about top 40 lists, they have whole teams doing it. And I mean, you're putting together a whole package, you know, by yourself. You're playing the instruments, and especially with the looping, it gives you the opportunity to play so many live instruments that end up in a song. For anybody who might be new, why don't you introduce yourself and how you got into just the looping and like introducing the looping station and stuff like that? What's that like?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name's Chris McConnell. I use a loop station to basically build a song up from scratch right in front of you. I always say everything you're going to hear live from me, everything you hear is going to be performed live, like right in front of you, using a loop station. I started doing this, man, back when I was a teenager, and would just, loop in my bedroom with a guitar, kind of learning songs. And then progressively, I played through in many types of bands throughout the years, and would use a loop station sometimes to supplement, to be two guitars. I've used it to play bass before too, to do like bass layers. And then over time, regardless of what band I was in, I would still be doing this every night anyway. And I started to get curious about more and more instruments. And then I progressively started to bring them in and was like, I think I could add all these in on these loop stations. And, I was very, like you said, we got YouTube. I'm very fortunate to take in as many influences as I could musically, and other people who have explored spaces like this before too. And started just making, well, basically, like I said, like a sort of like a minute or a 30-second little thing every night, just to kind of challenge myself. And then I started being like, I should share these. I might as well share these. People might like these. And just started evolving from there to being like, I should go ahead and make full songs. Why not? I like you. Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I? It happens very, very organically. The whole thing happened very organically. And then, like we're saying, man, I always think it's important to play live. I don't ever want to lose playing live. I'm a theater person. I'm a performer too. Like I like performing. And I think getting to experience it live is a whole thing too. Yeah. You were mentioning Tool, and Tool is one of those bands early on. I remember hearing them say things like, have you ever seen a picture of the Grand Canyon? And then they're like, yeah. And they're like, it's not the same as in person. And you're like, oh. And but if you ever watch Maynard Keenan, you ever see those bands play, dude, they are so dialed in. It's awesome. So if I'm going to get up on stage and, my expectation of watching somebody on stage is that they're going to do something to entertain me. So I feel like at the very least, I should be as locked in as I possibly can. And that will benefit anyone watching. Like the more locked I am, the better it's going to be for them. And that is a weird thing to get over too, like kind of stage fright of like letting go to do to get in the moment of stuff like that. That's a weird thing that took me a long time to do as well. But you just gotta accept that sometimes you might embarrass yourself.
Well, what comes to mind? One, like the experience, yes, like definitely, like being there, like. One thing, like we could probably like record all your stuff, and I don't think it would ever give a justification there being live. Like when you're there, it's an experience. But also like we since last time we've talked to people about like improv, like with Stefan of Improv 502, and what comes to mind, like your performances. What comes to mind is improv, like, because I could only imagine, like, I'm sure there's a lot of planning that goes into it, but whenever you're doing all that by yourself, you have to use yes and, I would think, like, because if there's a mistake, you just keep going, and like we don't hear it. I've never, like, we listened to your show, we didn't hear a mistake, but if there was one, like, I'm sure you just kept going. Like, would you, like, it's just awesome.
Yes, you nailed it. You already have to have kind of pre-planned routes in your brain to like, okay, I can jump off to this, to that, if this goes south. Like if this doesn't go left, then we can go right, but you got to bring it back to this. Yes, you're right. There's a whole bunch of like really nerdy technical ways I could tell you I do that. But it all comes back to what you're saying, man. Like putting in the effort to being as locked in as you can. And improv is a great thing to bring up too. I used to do a little bit of improv, and I used to do stand up, and I would say a lot of that. If I didn't do that stuff, I probably wouldn't be able to do what I do. Because it is hard. And when I will say, when you bomb in comedy, that hurts. That hurts.
It's a lot different than
you like that stays with you for like days. Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. It's so, if you think you have something that people are gonna love and think's funny in your head, and then you say it to a room, and they're just like, they're looking at you like, how dare you, or whatever. The faces just haunt you. They just haunt you. And it's a valuable lesson. I say all that because it's a real quick allegory, like story too. When I used to bartend, and there's definitely, if you're early into bartending, there's a baptism that happens where you go into the weeds and you go in there alone and you get destroyed. It'll happen. It's guaranteed to happen. Like, it's going to happen. It's just like a matter of how you're going to handle being in the weeds and burning like that. All that stuff, I would say, is like a similar experience to like that on edge feeling, or that feeling of crashing or bombing or whatever. That stuff is so good and can be used as fuel to basically, I guess, protect your honor, right? That's kind of what it is. Like, you're putting it out there on the line, and you're trying to protect as best you can.
Well, both of those, I could imagine you're dealing with a lot of drunk, either customers or audience members, right? Yeah. So if you're a bartender or you're a comedian, there's going to be hecklers of both sides, So like,
yeah, hecklers are the worst. I've had some funny hecklers in my day, man. God, we could go on hecklers alone, man. I've had drunk people fall on stage while I'm playing. I've had people like get up, like filming in your face, like insulting you, like they're mad about like the way you're doing something. But a great way to handle a heckler, I saw Mitch Hedberg do it a long time ago, is someone was yelling like that they thought they were funnier, is to just call them up and swap them. I was playing back when I used to do a cover shows.
And on the mic, just hand on the mic.
That's exactly what I did. I just swap this guy. This guy was mad about some song, and then I was just like, oh, and I started playing it again and introduced him. He was going to come up and sing it, and all of his friends clapped for him, so he had to, and he came up, and shut him the fuck up, He said, I think they kicked him out after that. That's what happened. Old hecklers, dude.
Like with improv, like with the yes and, like what I think of, like I guess sometimes you have to, or the yes and with improv, like yes and your partner, where when these solo acts, I guess you're yes ending yourself. You have to be confident in what you're going to do next, whether if it bombs, keep going and know it's going to work out. Yeah,
yeah. And I'll tell you, my nightmare is having like a bad feedback loop. Like, because then it's just torture. Everyone's caught in it, and I don't want to torture everyone, obviously. But to speak to what you're saying, when I play live, like you said, like you all saw the 13 instruments show, my goal is to I typically try to do a live show to where each of the instruments I like playing has like a moment, like I can give each song like sort of a moment. And in my head, if one of those instruments is going to fuck up or something's going to go south, I know that I'll just jump to the next instrument. Like you're talking about, I know what I already kind of have the path planned out. I've walked the path a bunch, plenty. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and kind of to that point of jumping from instrument to instrument, last time you mentioned when you kind of introduced what you did, I guess you said like the 13 instruments and each instrument adds to the story. And I think that's something that's important to bring up is like, and I heard you say that before, but then I heard you say it when I listened to it again recently, just in, preparation for this conversation, that even watching your videos, every instrument that you add in comes with a different segment of the story, especially for your videos. And that was really cool, man. Like, how do you plan for something where you're going to be doing so many different instruments, especially something like 13 different instruments, and you have to add to the story that many times? That's crazy.
Just like years of like hashing this out. So there's sort of, let's get nerdy, dude. I'm gonna get nerdy on you. Okay. There's sort of two ways that I try to map out a live show. There's the first one. There's the story. Do I want to tell a story? Or there's obviously you want to entertain people, like what songs I think are entertaining and pop up good. but technically speaking, what songs are in what tempo. So if I have two songs that I both know are 90 beats a minute, I can smoothly slide that song into the next song and no one will probably even notice. You know what I mean? And if I do the loop correct, the first loop, I'll be able to do two songs off of that loop. Now, it would take me frankly a few years of like being like me having this idea of a couple of ways I want to do to a live show, like what instruments I thought would follow path, and finding out that it's like a nightmare to get different things set up quickly in between a time period to the next song to where it makes sense without losing everyone's attention, especially a bar. A bar is a good, test for this because people have the minimal attention on you anyway. So
Yeah.
if I have some kind of song that's going to jump to another song and it takes me longer than 30 seconds to get that next song, like, swap to my keyboard to synth, swap this drum to an acoustic drum real quick, make sure that my electric guitar is on and not the acoustic real quick. If I can't get that right within 30 seconds, they're gone anyway, bro. They're gone anyway. So it doesn't even matter what you play. Like you already lost them. So it took a long time to kind of figure out how long I'd be in between certain things and what was worth, which ones I felt like were worth doing that. Now, I'm fortunate too that I have a whole bunch of like songs and material that I can just kind of pick through and try to organize a story off of too. That's when I do my live shows, especially for like you gentlemen, you all got to see the like my sort of Southern Devil show. That's sort of the theme of that show. And like I don't want to get like too much away without seeing it, but there's definitely a theme and there's definitely a story going on that has to do with my Crossroads story, all that. Like that character to me, like I try to take that character through all those instruments and have it make sense to where by the end there's like a nice like almost feels like a movie, right? Like we were like, damn, that was a journey, baby. That was a trip. I've got another one that I've got orchestrated too that I'm going to do. I've done a couple of these now where I call my 2-act show where I'll do that Southern Devil set and then I'll do my Cruel Buddhist set, which is fun too. There's a little bit more, I would say, obviously some Eastern influencing type sounding songs, but a similar journey, man. A fun journey to go on. I try to take you through as many instruments as I can, as long as it makes sense to a story through that set as well.
How many instruments do you play now? We know it's at least 13.
At least. Dude, you want to see something cool? I just got one. Yeah, dude, I just today got something new I'm going to be testing out. This little guy right here. You see this?
What is that? It looks like a little boat or leaf almost.
Okay, please don't make fun of me. You are getting something fresh, bro. I've just been messing with this thing for an hour. This right here is an American jaw harp. This is a cowboy instrument, baby. It sounds like, to me, like when you're going into the desert, or like, it also makes me feel very like Australian. What you do is you place this guy sort of like right on your teeth here, and you're hitting this harp button. Like, I don't know if you can hear this. It's like a light thing like that. But you basically make A-E-I-O-U like type gestures with your teeth and breathe.
Starting to hear it. It's like a harmonica vocoder or something. Like
it's like a vocal harmonica, yeah.
Sort of like I've seen some weird trancey things with it. I think that this could turn into some kind of cool character,
Okay.
That sounds really cool. Like something almost
cool.
robotic or something like that,
Right.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear that come in. So
sparks me, dude. Yeah.
So that's crazy. So how many instruments do you think you play? Like what number do you think you're at? Because there's got to be so many.
There's a bunch, dude. Yeah. Let's see. We can try to take a look at the room around here.
The death whistle and stuff. Like there's so many crazy ones. Like how many would you say?
Maybe between 15 and 20, like total, but probably I kind of group all instruments now like as like their like wind or string, keys, percussion. Like most keys are easy for me to pick up. Most strings are pretty easy for me to understand as long as I get like the tuning of it, which you could usually figure out. Wind instruments are I'm the most new to, so it's always the biggest hurdle for me, but I love them. Dude, I've still got a couple of instruments that I'm trying to get down. I'll give you another spoiler one, dude. My brother got me some bagpipes, and I just haven't felt like punishing my neighbors yet. Like that's really all.
It's like trying to play the violin in your parents' basement or something. Like, if you're trying to learn that, then it could be rough.
I love that Shoots and Ladder song from Korn, dude. Just to be able to like do that cool walk up with the bagpipe. Oh man.
Being
Cool,
of
dude.
Irish heritage, like
Yeah.
the whole UK
Yeah.
heritage, Irish, Scottish, I could definitely appreciate some bagpipes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll get there eventually.
And
But man,
honestly,
something like that. A whole bunch of instruments. Yeah.
that's crazy. The day you play bagpipes in a live show, I gotta be there because
Yeah.
that's one to
Dude,
set up and like try to get in position for, because it's a big beast, right? I mean,
Dude, that's what I didn't understand about bagpipes. It's a lot to take on. You have to like I mean, okay, like I don't want to explain bagpipes, but basically you have to fill that bag up first, like with your breath, and that's what you're doing. You're blowing in it to fill the bag up. You just kind of put pressure on your arm, and the windpipe right there is what's making the notes below. You're basically just playing like any wind instrument, really, but you're squeezing it and you're blowing it to fill it back up for your like next note. So the continuity is basically how full it is and how long you could squeeze a note to keep it going. But it's hard to get it filled up, man. It is.
Yeah.
It would be really hard to do live. I would have to have that like bad boy like queued up. You know what I mean? Like
that sounds
that somehow.
Pre-pressure with like a CO2.
It sounds way worse than like tuning a guitar though. Like tuning a guitar just up string breaks, fuck, But
Yeah, there's so much that could go wrong. You're right. There's so much that could go wrong.
Like, do they pop? Like what?
Oh, maybe. That could be a YouTube rabbit hole, dude. Yeah, pop the bagpipes.
That's just
out, man.
so crazy, man. And again, shout out to you for just doing so much, playing so many different things. Like true dedication for real.
Thank you, man.
That's the only word that comes to mind. Especially because I think last time we talked, you kind of mentioned the fact that sometimes it can take like 2 to 3 years to make a whole project come to fruition where you're ready to release a video, right? From the live loop and everything. How do you manage projects for so long? And have you ever thought about like scrapping a project just because?
Yes, whatever. And I have. Unfortunately, a lot of the ones I've scrapped have just been because I couldn't get the other pieces together. There's usually some song that got destroyed, like sadly. But most of the projects, I try to release everything to the public in the order that I wrote it, if that makes any sense. So the stuff that you're hearing is stuff typically that I put together now at this point, maybe 3 years ago. Yeah. I think I wrote In Time 3 years ago, like the next one I'm going to put out. And that gives me when I first thought about putting stuff out to people, I knew that I would need a cushion, because I see people like beat their head against the wall because they're like, I don't have something to put out by Friday and I got to do it by Friday. And, not saying that having your back up against the wall isn't bad for creativity. It can be very good for creativity, like putting yourself on a timeline. But for me, I try to let the songs happen as organically as possible, like this, whatever comes through, whatever instrument's working. And then I'll take the time and think about what story I want to tell over it. And I give myself about a 6-month space between when I first started, like of when I put stuff out, and videos I kind of pre-built into like, okay, I've got like a little bit of a small library, so I can always have a cushion to work in between. What's happened is that cushion has gotten bigger over the years because I kind of started putting things out a little slower to push them a little more, to try and not to skip over them and have them get lost in a wash. So how I manage it is I literally go to what's the next one that I did, what's the last loop that I recorded? And it's funny you say that. I'm working on one right now. That's the next thing that I have. You guys like David Lynch?
Yes.
That's
He's
a director.
Like 70s. Was it Eraserhead? Yes.
Lost Highway. I love David Lynch. I'm a big fan of David Lynch, and he's big into transcendental meditation, which is like, you don't have to get nerdy into, but
Andy Kaufman, TM, dude. Yes. So many of them, like everybody I used to look up to, like growing up, like they all like praise that.
Dude, he espouses that like to where it's just kind of like allowing the space to let ideas come to you. And David Lynch espouses transcendental meditation, but when you get to the root of that, it's just sort of creating emptiness in your brain and space to just like let ideas kind of bubble up. And I try to do like what he says and just collect good ideas. Like when you get a good idea, just take that shit, write it down, put it in a fucking notebook. That idea may be something great that you are super inspired by and you make right then. Sometimes those ideas come in and I realize, oh my God, that's the key I've been missing for this other thing. And that's exactly like how you're describing, like how something just comes together. It's just sort of piecing together ideas. Songwriting, all this stuff. Art, at least for me, it's kind of, that's the generic process, right? Just grabbing things as they come and based off of whatever opportunity I provided myself, either musically or creatively. If I've set up some kind of scene, directors and stuff, like if you look at making a movie, think of it as like you've got your script, you've got your lock script, exactly what you want to do. If you've got that, that's great to have. But on the day, the light might be a little different and you might notice something like, oh my goodness, we should catch that or whatever. Take it, dude. Take it. I'll just collect things like that. I'm a videographer and a photographer during the day. So if I've got my camera around, I'll shoot shots just to maybe that'll be useful to me. Maybe it'll be useful to other people too. Maybe like something I can upload as like B-roll or something before the AI just replaces all the sky footage.
AI can't even draw hands. Let's be real. They still need some time.
Man, that stuff is getting crazier and crazier though, man. It's pretty wild.
It is. It is. I didn't mean to derail what you were saying. It was very important, but I think there's definitely always going to be space for true artists, true photographers, true videographers, and things like that. AI is still struggling with a lot of things.
Yeah. It's easy to think about when you just step back, think like your wedding day. If you have your wedding day, AI cannot create the video for your wedding day. Somebody's got to be there to shoot that. Like just moments like that. It could be anything. There's always going to be a necessity for people to be there to make something. And hopefully
man.
That pays, bro. Who knows what it'll turn into though? It's getting weird already, man.
It is scary too. When you talk about tech and stuff, it definitely scary. So you mentioned you do videography and photography and stuff. What's your background in videography and photography? Because your videos are all very intriguing, to say the least. Like you never really know where a video is going to go, and it always goes down this thing. And then like with with the way your music, going back to you playing a different instrument for like so many different of the scenes, it's almost like every new scene has a new instrument associated with it, with what you do. So how did you get into videography, and like who are some of your inspirations in that?
Great question, dude. I got into videography probably with my like younger brother and cousin when we used to get together and like film Jackass videos or making our own little James Bond movies, which are out there still. You could still find somewhere on the interwebs. But probably around that time, I got really interested in cameras and particularly video. I would say that I was just talking about this with someone the other day too. There seems like there's two types of like creators like that. There are people who started off behind the camera and had ideas that they wanted to make in front of the camera, and they didn't feel like they could do them themselves in front of the camera. And then there's people who have an idea that they want to get on camera, but they don't know how to get it on camera, and they're trying to figure out how to do it behind. I would say I lean more into that category. When I was in high school, we had a thing called ETV. I went to a school called Trinity, and we would do like sort of little segments, and I would basically end up usually going as gonzo like as possible on little segments that I could. They would want me to, I can think of they wanted me to cover the quick recall tournament. And I just tried to make the video as dramatic and like as crazy, with, frankly, like as little to do with quick recall as possible. Just like
little fear
What's the state of
loathing.
Ohio? Dun dun dun.
Right, like quick recall is, I mean, it's pretty boring, but like, there's elements of it that are fun, and there's certainly stuff that you could play with. And that sort of stuff is what would get me into wanting to learn. Am I freezing? Uh-oh.
It was a split one.
Cool.
Like, I think we're good.
That stuff wanted to get me to learn behind the camera. So really, man, I've been doing this like since I would say like I was like maybe 7th or 8th grade. I started to mess around with cameras. I did it all through high school, through college. I initially got hired as a tutor for like Adobe, but I stopped doing it because it wasn't like it didn't pay very well, and I didn't really want to do it anyway. But I started to work at a company, and I worked sort of as their creative person for a little bit. Then I worked like purely as a videographer, and then funny enough, I got into photography just like by means of doing videography. I've always said I feel like photography is harder. I feel like it's harder to catch like a single image that tells like a story in the way that like you can do with motion. But I prefer video. I prefer like telling a story. I love movies. Big influences on me, movies, dude. I don't know, man. I'm a total cinephile. I already mentioned David Lynch. I'm a big Asian horror movie fan. So like I guess the Kurosawas.
Is that like The Grudge, like the original Grudge type stuff? Like,
sure. Yeah, The Grudge. I'll tell you a great one is Cure, Cure, Cure. If you've ever heard of that, Ani Baba, like these old ones. They're great stories, dude. They're like really creepy. What's the one I just watched the other day? I've seen. Oh man, I'm gonna blank, but it's a couple of stories. I think of it, or we could figure it out probably pretty quick. But it's like a collection of like 4 ghost stories.
It's on Netflix.
Old. It's on. It's in the. I think it's in the Criterion collection. Like so, I don't. It's a TCM Turner Classic Movies.
Okay.
I think that's where it's at. Anyway, it's the one where the guy's the earless guy. There's the ghost of the woman, the snow woman too. There's a couple of like really good ghost stories in there, man. Highly recommend these. Like, I mean, like I know that they're old, and we're maybe it's like a thing like where you get older, but you get more like tolerance to things that are older. But like the stories are so good. Like the stories are top notch, man. Excellent story writing, and a lot of those older directors, maybe it has to do with film because you have a limited amount of things you could shoot, but a lot of their shots just cut through the bullshit. Like you just get shots like it's like everything you need is right there in the shot. So it's way easier to be inspired by
and less angles, less camera, less being able to manipulate graphics and stuff like that. Like it
only moving it when it's necessary. You know what I mean? Like when there's a purpose to like pushing stuff in. Yeah, but understand stuff like that when people push in stuff like that, dude. I studied David Lynch, like, Lawrence of Arabia, like classic movies like that, like how they cut and like those transitions and how they affect you or whatever. And then, of course, I would recommend to anyone, this isn't necessarily a director, but I guess knowing the hero's journey. What's that Joseph Campbell book? I mean, I'm not a huge proponent of like that generic story, but you should study that just to find the little bumps of how the typical hero's journey goes. And then you can sort of see where directors play with that stuff and where it makes characters really interesting. I myself have always been interested in like characters of mischief. You know what I mean? Like the jokester, the trickster character is the person who teaches people a lesson of some kind. And I think that's my art almost always ends up reflecting that. Well, no matter how much I try to get away from, if I try to write something away from that, I end up right back in there. I love that stuff.
And I was going to say, you can kind of see some of that in your music, honestly, a little. Hell, just the Crossroads, which we talked extensively about last time, that Ars Diaboli piece, the whole Crossroads demon. It's obviously like there's a little bit of a trickster notion there in a way, because obviously one person's getting away, or one entity is getting a much better deal out of it. And I kind of think it really applies there. Obviously the demons the better end of the deal, and I think you could even relate that, and it's
100%.
Pretty 100%. Awesome to hear that and understand that. I
think it helps. I think for me, maybe it helps me like to kind of take on the I perspective of that person, because you're usually in the story when you reading a story or watching a movie or something, you're in the hero's perspective, but obviously everyone's always more into the Joker or like whoever the villain is in the story, and to put yourself in that shoe and do it, it's very fun, first off, but the things you could do creatively tend to be more dangerous. And if you do it it seems like right, the person viewing it doesn't feel like, oh, I espouse what that person did, like like this bad man. I think that's good. No, but they'll empathize with it, and then they'll realize they themselves, like taking in the art, they're the person that this is.
It's the Thanos arc. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah, dude, it is the Thanos arc, isn't it?
Exactly. It's crazy, because Thanos is one of those more recent figures in cinema, I think, that you can really kind of put that on. Like everybody throughout the whole Marvel series and the build up to it, everybody felt for him, began to understand him, and started to empathize with him. It really led to this whole thing, who everybody, like it split the universe, it split the whole world, really, like who was for who wanted who to win. And the way Marvel handled that was crazy.
Mm-hmm. I think, which is the first one? Is the first one Endgame or what's you're right, dude. What's the second to last Avengers one called? Not Endgame.
I'm horrible with names, honestly.
The one that ends with the snap, dude. I remember seeing it in theaters. I thought that was crazy that they did that. That was ballsy, but I loved it. Oh, I loved
Everybody
that.
did, and it made people have to wait for the next one.
Yeah. That was well done. That gives me goosebumps thinking about that. I remember being like, "Whoa, dude, they went there, man." Yeah.
And so that videography is crazy.
Man. Yeah, dude. Yeah, and just what story you're trying to share with what video you're making. Being a storyteller, I'd say, is the most important thing I could do for helping your videography, or really any of your art. I got another good one for you, bro. Here you go. Anyone seeking the noble profession of an artist in whatever vertical or facet you find that to be, read Letters to a Young Poet. It's a really simple book. It's about 100 pages or whatever, but it's exactly that. It's this young poet who is writing to this elder statesman type poet some simple life advice, and dude, it's all profound. It's all very, very profound. That's another thing I could leave with anyone trying in any pursuit of the arts. That's a worthwhile book. Super simple book to read.
Oh yeah, love that, because we was actually just about to ask you, like, with you having so many different skills of different again, wearing so many different hats, we was about to ask you what advice would you give to other new artists or other artists. And so definitely read those. Like that would definitely
read that stuff, because it just gets you thinking about what what you're what it is to be an artist, first off, like what that really means, and get you thinking about what you want to say, how you want to say it. Maybe not even necessarily what you want to say, but like just observations you've made or whatnot, or like I said, like what you're painting, like letting it becoming that vessel or channel and letting stuff come through. I think Michael Jackson used to say, like, leaving that space for God, as he used to say, depending on your school of thought, and interesting coming from Michael Jackson, I guess, but he's not wrong. There is like a vacuum that sort of opens up sometimes. It's weird to explain. I'll tell you a good example of this is the right before I made that song, the Ars Diaboli. That song, I think I remember telling you guys that like fell out of me. Like it just like fell right out of me. It's really weird how that happens sometimes. Like I had this, it started with that Crossroads idea, and then that song just fell right out of me and recorded it easy. No problem.
What's up, everybody? We just wanted to take a quick pause and say, if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop us a couple comments. Let us know what you like, what you don't, and let us know what you think about the video. And make sure to share out with your friends and family. It really helps us a lot.
Yeah, we're on every social media platform. We're on every podcast provider out there. So whenever you get a chance, just give us a like, give us a follow. We definitely appreciate it. It really helps us out.
And with that, we'll get right back to it.
Yo.
I got a video October 1st. I got something coming out called In Time. You guys will love it. It's follows the story of a porch pirate.
Oh,
that's right. A good old porch pirate. And he's going to come across two very cool things local here to Louisville. There's this cool abandoned Louisville pool I think it was called Hili, Hili. I could be saying that wrong, but it was this abandoned pool that I was able to find sort of near Outer Loop. And then also the Witch's Tree. Have you all ever heard of the Witch's Tree?
No, I heard of the Witch's Hat.
Is that Iroquois Park? Witch's Tree. Is that Iroquois Park?
No. The Witch's Tree is down by Central Park, right? check this out, bro. It's got a cool lore to it. I wrote it down so I wouldn't mess it up. The witch's tree was in 1880. The Courier Journal wrote it and called it the Storm Demon. It used to be this place where voodoo practitioners would meet and like work on their spells and shit. This is at the bottom like corner of Central Park in downtown Louisville, right? You can't miss this thing. It's like a monster looking tree. Anyway, they tried to, in 1889, cut it down, and they started to cut it down despite like the witches freaking out, being like, yo, dude, I wouldn't do that. Like that tree's like, we got some stuff on that tree. You might want to chill on that. Well, they started to cut it down. And apparently once they began the removal process, they were going to remove it and turn it into like a maypole, like a totem pole for some festival thing they were doing. Well, the Louisville got hit with like a tornado, like a massive storm, and it destroyed most of the city and killed over 100 people and a couple of people in that committee that were deciding that. So ever since then, the tree has remained like untouched, and now people leave like little trinkets and like offerings to it. But it's got like, deep ties to the voodoo and the voodoo practices. It's called the witch's tree. So you could go check that out, get a spell put on you, baby, you know?
Time for Halloween coming up.
Exactly.
That's right, man. Yeah.
Man.
That makes a little pop up in this video, dude. I try to always keep some cool Louisville lore in the stories I tell, you know?
And you do, like last time, you know, obviously you had the Crossroads, which, I mean, it wasn't Louisville related, but it was the Crossroads. It was very landmark related. And then like right as we were ending, you mentioned that snake trail. It was in Ohio. You did a video about that. Is that the one that's in as above it is below?
Yeah. Serpent's Mound. That's right. Serpent's Mound. Without like jumping deep in on it, it's quite possibly seen as like a giant ancient fertility offering, or maybe like I guess worshiping point or whatnot. It's said that Serpent's Mounds on summer solstice and winter solstice. Summer solstice, beginning like crop season, essentially, the snake's mouth is pointed directly to the sun with the tail pointed to the moon, like perfectly. There's a whole bunch of like fun.
That's so
who's
cool.
That guy that has ancient civilizations. Not Richard. I was gonna say Richard Dawkins, but he's the atheist guy, right? Can't think of his name. He's a doctor. I can picture him. He talks. Graham Hancock. He's always mad at the so-called skeptics. Yeah, he's great. He's great. But he's convinced that location may be way older, leading to like a way more ancient civilization. But anyway, what I always thought was interesting about that place and what attracted me to that place with the song I did was that it's sort of seen as like this fertility thing of like an initiation point for when crops are planted and, you know, when they're harvested. And then I shot the second portion of that, a sequence, like the video of that in Pleasureville, Kentucky, just to compliment it. I thought it would be a nice pairing, but somewhere like with like kind of utility, and then the other half of that, right? Like the other half of
exactly
of creating life, if you will. Yeah. But yeah, I just thought that those places fit very well with that story, and I was honored to check them out both and share them in any small way. Anyone should go to those places and appreciate them. They're really cool. And there's so many more cool, weird places around here. I love weird like locations and oddball history, Atlas Obscura stuff. Yeah. Big fan.
It's so cool, man. It's so cool to see that everything we talked about before it's the same a year later. And one thing we did want to say, we didn't really get a chance, but thank you for reaching out to us the first time when you did. Because on it, like we hadn't done any kind of interview stuff before then. We had wanted to. That was our main goal, but we might not be where we are today having talked to as many people as we have if you hadn't done that. So
definitely appreciate you.
Thank you for kind of kickstarting that journey for us.
Yeah, dude. Because chase them dreams, baby. Chase them dreams. That's right.
Exactly. And I mean, but you know, it was different having you reach out and be like, hey, I got something for you guys. And instead of us having to reach out and feel, you know, some type of way about reaching out. And now, you know, we've talked to so many people, you know, like I mentioned a little bit ago, the Via Calori We're festival partnered with Via Calori. We just talked and released an episode with KD and Demi, who did the Mile Kentucky Home song.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Demi's a Ville-billy, right?
Ville-billy,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Demi Demery from the
thought,
Ville-billies,
dude.
yep.
It's a Ville-billy. That's
Yep.
awesome, man. That's
So,
awesome.
without you kind of starting this for us pretty much almost exactly a year ago, we might be give or take a week, but thank you for reaching out, man. We really appreciate it. It's been really cool being able to see what you've been doing too through this whole time and to reconnect with you just a year later. We thought it was perfect.
Likewise,
and it
dude.
was time.
Same, dude. Likewise, man. Absolutely likewise. And thank you guys for helping me out in the same way, man. I as you can tell, I got stories I want to share. I want to share these with people. And you know what? I find that a lot of these traditional media type routes, it's a nightmare to even get through to somebody, to just hey, yo, I got something you might want to hear. Like you guys might want to check this stuff. You can't even get a response to it. So it's like, it probably is better just working off like with direct individuals who I know, dude, that like I would rather do that anyway.
And even when you do get a chance to get in front of a camera with like radio and news, you get like 5 or 10 minutes. You don't get an hour and a half. Like you don't get to tell your full story, and so that's
a clean cut version too of that. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And really, who does that benefit anymore? Who are they broadcasting to? It's mostly like older people, and I'm not bashing older people, but
it's a different audience. They're not people going to the shows,
Right. Yes. It's hard to get people out of their house anymore, man. But I gotta say, I understand. You know what I mean? It's so easy to get everything you need inside anymore. I just had an Amazon delivery of this. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. And thank you for kind of like displaying that for us, man. That's really cool. Cool new instrument, cool new idea.
I'm gonna go to town on this, dude. This is gonna be fun.
Hell yeah. Well, man,
some fun thoughts brewing.
You got any other questions or anything?
October 1st, that's when the new song is that when the new video's releasing? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm gonna put all of it. I'm gonna drop it all same day, video, song, wherever you get your entertainment. If you're a Spotify person, all my loops are on Spotify. If you're a YouTube person or Instagram, whatever social media, I try to put them on them all. I try to just be available to you beautiful people. And then the next thing I'll put out probably won't be until December, but it is fun. It's a story based on every conspiracy theorist you've ever met. And the imagery that you see on a lot of my social media right now of that guy in front of that wall with the question mark, that's all from that shoot. So it's kind of fun to like round us out this year too, to all this stuff. I've got 2 more shows I know coming up right now. I've got a show October 18th in Frankfurt where I'm going to play 2 acts. I'm going to do both of those acts I talked about earlier. And then I got a show November 15th with the boys in the SBDM project. Those guys rule. Those guys from they're typically the wrong side people. I don't know if you've been to that place, but that place is tight. The place rules. But we're actually playing at Foxden, which also rules. That place has been around for forever, has many different things. Shout outs to back when it was diamonds. You know what I mean? Other than that, starting next year, I should have a good lineup of shows coming up in the spring. I'm trying to set up something. I don't want to announce anything yet. And then all my videos going forward should be shot on a cinema camera, like 4K. So it's just going to be upgraded quality, baby. So the one you got right in your background right there, Circle of Cicadas, that was actually shot on my cinema bad boy too, man.
Oh yeah,
cicadas, man.
What was that inspired by the brood or the what was it that was supposed to happen?
This year was supposed to be like the releasing of the cicadas because it's 7-year cycle or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. Now, funny enough, during the last cicada thing, that's when I wrote that. I think that was during the pandemic. We had a big hit of cicadas. That's when I wrote that, and I put that out a little earlier than like I mentioned. I try to do a timeline of when I wrote things, but I put that one out earlier just because I thought it would be a summer of cicadas. And it really wasn't a summer of cicadas.
Right.
But I'll tell you what.
I saw a couple.
When I shot with those cicadas, I caught those cicadas and put them in my house and to shoot that. So you just think about that, people. That's what I did for me and for you. That was the whole thing.
I bet. Yeah, that's some dedication for sure.
It was fun, man. Dude, you guys rule, man. Thank you guys so much for always doing this, dude. Like I'll do it again anytime you guys want.
Of course, man. We'll definitely be in touch, as we move through this and see more things released. We at least every year. I mean, at this point, it's a tradition, right?
Hopefully sooner. We're definitely going to try to make at least one of those shows. Hopefully both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
man.
sure.
Yeah, it is. It's a good spooky season tradition. Yeah, come to. I would say try to come to Fox Den, man. That ought to be a good show. I know that there's some other good acts on that show too. And then I might have another one pop up. We'll see. We'll see how the rest of this year pans out.
For sure.
But regardless, I always tell people, if you're a fan of what I do, I got plenty coming out. Just stay in the cut, baby. I'll keep stuff coming.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you. And thank you again for joining us. Thank you for, again, sparking this whole journey for us, for real. It's been fun. It's been awesome. So with that,
you did that, man. You guys did that.
I mean, we try, but you really helped a lot. I mean, more than you think, like just by, starting off that first one. So either way,
it's my honor, man. It's my honor. Like I said, you guys helped me too, man. This all helps. This is all nothing but good. It's all love, dude. It's all love. For sure. That's all entertainment should be. So I guess with that, man, we'll see you next time. We'll see everybody else next time. And thank you for tuning in. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
They're off in the Kentucky Derby.
Interest of the greater good for me to smoke a joint and calm down.
I am the greatest. He'll fall an 8 to prove that I'm great. And if he keeps talking jive, I'm going to cut it to 5.